I used to live just up the road at Eversley Rise, and Darley Dale Cricket Club has always been a big part of my life. From the time I was a little boy, about 7 or 8 years old, I used to come down here every Saturday and watch the teams play. It was very interesting, actually, because then they had a fence all the way around the front of the pavilion and a little gate in the middle where the players walked out and went through the gate. And they had seats, green seats, that were only stolen about 10 years ago, all the way along the front here. And as a little boy, we used to just come, 2 or 3 of us would come and sit on these seats. And then the owner of the ground, one Mr. Alfred Smith, who owned all Darley Dale and the ground as well, he would come round with his walking stick, and we boys would be sitting on the seats in the front of the pavilion here, and he'd come with a walking stick and he'd whack you across the knee, just like that. And he'd say, come on, members only, members only. Those seats along the riverbank are for you. And they were the ones that are a bit like the ones in front of the pavilion now. And so we had to run away and sit on the seats in front of the riverbank. But we used to, we soon got used to him, and every time he came, we used to just wait till he would come in with the stick, and we'd run off around the field, and he couldn't catch us. That was, and from then it was just for me. It was cricket. I'd come down practice night Monday. They used to practice on Mondays in those days, and I'd come down Monday and I'd field for the men in the nets and hope that at the end I might just get a knock, which occasionally I did, but not very often. But it was a big part of my life.
Was it always, when you say you first started coming down here, was it always your intention to play for Darley Dale, or did that kind of develop from coming down here?
Yeah, no, that was always my intention. When I was about 10, I was a scorer. Well, I did the drums. I worked the drums for Cyril Howes. Cyril Howes was the scorer, and he lived in a house. His name was Howes, and he lived in a house on Eversley Rise. And Alfred Smith gave him the house. And equally, Reg Bowden was captain of the club at the time, and George Woodhouse was the full-time groundsman, and Alfred Smith gave them a house each as well. So how times have changed. But I used to love just doing the drums, and you always got a free tea as well. So free tea was the highlight of the day, actually. That was great.
You see now where it's very, very inclusive to the whole club. Everybody comes down, the juniors, first team, second team, third team, and everyone gets to go. Was it a bit different then in your day? It sounds like you had to earn your stripes, even in training, before you could sort of get to that level.
It was totally different. I don't know. I mean, it just seemed there was a first team that was very, very good, and they were the elite, and then there didn't seem to be much else, really. But I don't know. I used to bring my kit down with me when I was doing the drums, and on occasions they were one short, so I'd get a chance to play and field. I never got a bat, but I'd get a chance to field, and it was terrific to be a part of it. I don't know. Perhaps one of the highlights when I was young was when I was 14. I remember it well. 1957. I was up at home mowing the lawn, and Reg Bowden, the captain, came down in his car, and he stopped outside our house, and he said, come on, Bobby, get your kit, he said. It's the final of the Orme Shield at Bakewell. I've broken a finger, and you're keeping wicket, because I used to keep wicket in those days. So I went with Reg, and I kept wicket in the final of the Orme Shield at Bakewell, and I caught Norman Yardley out behind the wicket. Some of you remember Norman Yardley, played for England. And Ray Bowden was a fast bowler then, and I caught him behind the wicket. That was a highlight for me. And I got my trophy, which is at home, 1957, winner's trophy of the Orme Shield, and that was brilliant.
Great story. And Wrighty, I obviously play cricket now for Darley Dale, and I see you and Bob thick as thieves around the boundary, home and away. Does your association, is that the same kind of time as Bob? Did you arrive on the scene the same kind of time?
Yeah, very, very similar sort of time. Probably I will be 5 or 6 when I first started to come down here. Always with a bottle of pop. And Sid Quigley used to call...
Was it just Pop?
Just Pop at that. In those days, yeah. Sid Quigley used to call me Poppy. But the sort of things I remember is when there was a wooden bar just in front of the kitchen door there, and teas were served from that. And Alfred Smith's brother, Fred Smith, was in charge of all the teas. And a lady called Winnie Atwood used to do the teas and look after everything. And Fred Smith would come round when they were making salad sandwiches. He'd go round with a pair of scissors round a slice of bread and cut all the lettuce off that was hanging out. So he'd make some more sandwiches. And later on, after Alfred had died, his brother, Fred was in a home in Buxton. And he used to come down very occasionally. Someone would drive him down in a big black old-fashioned car and say, Fred Smith's here, Fred Smith's here. Go round with the box again. Go round with the collection box. And he always put a 10-shilling note in. It was marvellous, that was.
And just Masha, moving on to you, something that Bob said then a couple of minutes ago about having to earn his stripes. I remember me and you having a conversation years and years ago, and you said a similar thing about, you know, coming down on a Saturday or at training with your kit and just praying that you might just get that opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. Like Bob, your biggest ambition was firstly to get in the old scorebox and roll the drums, because probably people here can't remember it as it was. We've seen photographs of it. They had the big drums inside with all the, you know, each batsman and the total and so on. And your ambition was to actually get in the scorebox first, just to be able to roll the drums. And also, like Bob referred to, it was, I always remember I'd come down once in the school holidays and I got back home. My dad said, "Where have you been?" I said, "Oh, I've been down at the cricket." "What? You can't do that. You can't go to, you know," it was absolutely kind of gobsmacked that, you know, I'd actually had the temerity to come down and use the ground. And that's how it was in those days. But my, well, as you know, you may not know, my granddad played down here, and then my dad played down here for many years, and obviously my brother played as well. And my early memories of coming down to the ground with my dad, walking down from where he used to live in Darley Dale, and carrying his big long leather, they had these big long leather cricket bags in those days, quite shallow bags that they had all the kit down, and walking down Station Road to the ground with him when I was knee high. So that's kind of an early memory of coming down, and I started, like Bob, I started coming down since I was knee high, and then you kind of progress to the score box, and then, like Bob, you bring your kit down just in case, and very occasionally you kind of get onto field, and then from there you start playing a bit more, but you're still only fielding, you know, out at long on while Les Hudson bowled his slow off breaks, which they used to launch in my direction quite regularly. Some you'd catch, some you wouldn't. If you didn't, you got the glare. But you know, that's how he started, isn't it, Bob? You know, that's how it was. There was no junior sides to, like, thankfully we've got now, to progress through. You just waited until you got the chance to maybe field in the second 11, and then maybe you'd bat 9, 10, 11, and then as you got a little bit older, maybe you'd move up a bit. And also, one of my earliest memories was going to games on the train from Darley Dale Station. Not many people had cars. We didn't have a car. So I'd go with my dad to catch the train from the station. And obviously Darley Dale played a lot of teams along the railway line, because that's how it was then. So you'd get the train to Cromford or Ambergate or Duffield or Derby Railways, Buxton up the other way, and many times on the train with my dad to watch the games.
Because your dad Harry was a very good cricketer himself. He could have played county cricket. Was it the war that stopped him?
Yes, I think he would have done had it not been for the war. He probably would have played county cricket, but that's the way it was. But so that was my early memories of going to games with him on the train to start with, just to watch.
Harry was a top-class bowler. He was absolutely brilliant. He swung it both ways, and you didn't know which way it was going to go until it left his hand, or until it pitched. And he was absolutely brilliant. And I was always amazed fielding to him all the time, because he set a field and he bowled to that field every ball, and he was absolutely brilliant. One of the best bowlers I've ever seen down here. Yeah.
And Phil, you arrived at obviously a later time, but still at a time that the club has been very successful. Had the dynamics changed a little bit by the time you got here? Was it the same kind of feel of a successful club where you had to earn your stripes and work your way up?
Well, I was at Ernest Bailey Grammar School, where Bob was the PE teacher, and in those days we were lucky to have 3, 4, maybe 5 decent cricketers in every year. And if Bob spotted a little bit of talent in anybody of that ilk, he sort of said, "Get yourself down to Darley Dale, son," which we all did. And after that, I went straight in the first team, opened the bowling at the age of 14, and then I woke up. But no, it was a very similar story. It's going to get boring, but I came down and was very pleased if I got to do the drums. I started in 1973 when I was 13. Didn't really play much in that year. I did more of the drum work, and I started in the following year, 1974, playing for the second team, occasionally getting in the first team, just fielding. But your pinnacle was your major aim was to get into the first team and hopefully contribute to what was an incredibly successful club. In my year, there was the likes of your dad, Jim Fearn. There was Simon Cottrell. There was a lad called Andy Lees, popularly known as Scooby. There was a guy called Chris Stead who played in the second team. There was one or two others I really can't think of at the moment. But each year at Ernest Bailey crops up about sort of 4 or 5 decent cricketers. And so Bob would sort of say, "Get yourself down to Darley Dale." And for some reason, we all did. And it was, I didn't look back from there. I've never ever considered playing for anybody else at all. And I was incredibly proud to be part of the side that won so much during the 70s and 80s. Particularly the 80s was tend to be my era. And occasionally, I'd chip in with the bat, I'd chip in with the bowling, but I was more of a fielder. And basically the best fielder the club's ever seen. But that's just the way it was. And now, I've gone down the teams. I played second team, and now I'm skipper of the third team, even though I'm not playing at the moment. But it's to me, it's nice to do that, because I'm now trying to bring the younger element that we've got. We've got lots of 13-year-old cricketers who are proving to be very, very adept. The likes of Ben Sellers, Ben Jordan. I'd like to see Aaron Frobisher, but he's not actually playing at the moment. My daughter did play, but she can't at the moment because it clashes with the dancing. But I'd like to think I'm bringing those youngsters on. The best example I can think of the youngsters is a lad called Jack Stone, who came to our club, started at a very, very young age. In those days, there was an under-18 team, or certainly in my day there was. And he has now moved on because it was right for him to do so. And he's playing for Denby in the Premiership, and he's doing very well. Behind the stumps, unfortunately, he doesn't get to bat that often in that side, so there must be a very, very good batting side for him not to get a place high up the order. But he is the pinnacle of the junior cricket, and it is really nice to see the kids coming on. So.
You just reminded me, Phil, of all the school teachers who did actually play down here, Bob. And Mickey Paulson, John Wood, Arthur Davenport, Con Lober, Les Hudson. Yeah, there's lots of, of school teachers actually played. So.
And me.
And Phil. And we used to get, and that was the difference then, we used to get really people walking through the gate every season, didn't you, from the grammar school. and you know, the supply of players was just fantastic. But it's it dried up, unfortunately.
Just to finish, sorry. Go on, John.
Just a little thought about when Bob was mentioning about when he got his first game keeping wicket in the Home Shield final, and Reg Bowden asked him. Well, Reg Bowden told me the story of when he was about a similar sort of age, and Alfred Smith was running the team then, and Alfred had said to Reg, "Come along, Reggie, you're playing today." And we're leaving the station at Darley Dale and we're playing at Duffield. So Reg said that he was walking round past the cricket ground here, and he looked to the station and the gates were closed across the road. And there was Alfred stood in front of the train with his hand up, stopping the train. "We've got to wait for Reggie." He's shouting, "Come along, Reggie, hurry up." And Reg told me this story many, many years ago, and that was Reg's first game for Darley Dale Cricket Club.
Brilliant. Just to finish this section off, my last question was actually for you, Wrighty. You're a keen observer now as things stand in 2015. It's obviously a lot different to how it was. Do you see any kind of similarities to the way the club's run now? Do you see the same kind of philosophy and feel for the club, or is it completely chalk and cheese to when you first started being associated with the club?
A little bit of both, really, because when you looked at when we were playing, we were just talking earlier this evening that we don't think that it's the teams stop together a lot more often at away matches and home matches. We would stop in here and have really good nights and away matches, and we go and visit other teams as well, their home grounds as well. And we sort of feel that the teams these days, they're off after the match, they want to go to Matlock or wherever, and it's not the same sort of team spirit.
The ground's always been the same size, yeah. But those trees over there, I mean, were just a small hedge that was wall height. It was just wall height, so you could look from here and you could see Ryber Castle. You could see the square and compass, actually. But, I don't know why it happened, but we used to have the hedge cut every year to wall height, and now it's not been cut for years and years and grown up and up. But apart from that, Maurice, things have developed a lot, well, particularly in here. I mean, a different world, isn't it? But the ground itself I think it's better now due to Charlie Creswell and AP than it's ever been. The square's certainly better than it's ever been, and that's AP is amazing groundsman, absolutely amazing.
It's the pavilion where there's been the most changes. I mean, when I first came down, there was a dressing room at this end, wasn't there, John?
Oh, that's right.
There was the dressing room at what was the original end over there, and then there was a piece in the middle with a tea bar, as you say, as you came out of the kitchen door where they used to serve the teas. Now, I was checking with Trevor earlier about the toilet situation, because I remember some old corrugated thing behind the pavilion, which was the gents.
It wasn't really corrugated,
Wasn't it?
No, it was a cast iron structure.
Oh, right.
It was a French pissoir.